Hello, everyone. I am Ebony Vaughn, and as always, I come to you with a word of encouragement, with a word of empowering, and with a word that equips. And I want to talk to leaders today, but I truly believe that this is not just about leaders. This is for many of us, right, as we journey through purpose. And I want to talk about that A word of avoidance, right? Many times, in our journey through purpose, we do the most when it comes to avoiding difficult and uncomfortable situations. And I truly believe that this sabotages our success and it prevents us from operating in a place of fear, in a place of faith. I'm sorry. But when we are operating in that place of avoidance, we are really operating in a spirit of fear. And I want to talk about that because I think so often we don't manifest or we don't walk in our purpose fully because we're avoiding the feeling of uncomfortability and vulnerability that comes, right, with actually facing something that we may have never faced before or something that we've never experienced before. And I want to talk about it real quickly in three different areas. I want to talk about it first in the area of business. One of the reasons why many of us avoid launching our businesses or launching our ministries is something that's really funny, right? But we don't always talk about because it might seem a little prideful. But many of us avoid launching into business because we're superstars in someone else's business. Let's talk about this thing. For those of us who are, for those of us who have experienced executive positions, we have experienced leadership positions in so many other forms, and we have gained a level of influence and we have gained a level of acknowledgement and visibility in our career fields or in our prospective fields, whatever that may look like. You have reached a pinnacle point in your particular area where you are known and people are coming to you for things. Why? Because you have built, you have established, you have achieved some things in that particular area, right? But when you are launching that business, guess what? You are the little man. You are doing everything until you build that thing, right? And so sometimes you lose the visibility and you lose the level of status that you may have had in, in a company or in a ministry or in a community because you find yourself in the trenches of day to day. Now, here's the thing. The part that we have to understand about that is when you are building something, it takes time. It takes a level of pace. It takes a level of patience. It takes a level of confidence and belief in the vision that you say you have, right? And sometimes it's easier to be a superstar in someone else's vineyard and instead of being being hidden in the trenches of building something that nobody knows anything about. Oftentimes, we don't launch because of that, avoiding the discomfort of building. Now, I'm going to talk to you about another area of avoidance. Another area of avoidance we have is because we don't like to be angry. We don't like to engage in conflict or engage in courageous conversations. So we will avoid the inevitable so that we'll remain comfortable, so that we'll remain agreeable or likable. And I want to challenge someone today. I want to challenge you to begin to open up to the possibility that discomfort in relationships and discomfort in conflict, guess what? That could be a stepping stone to a more powerful and a more productive relationship. That can be the stepping stone not only to finding clarity, but also building confidence confidence in that particular area. Does that make sense? I remember maybe about 30 years or so ago, my very first mentor, Dr. Pierce, he talked to me about something. I was in a meeting and there was conflict that I had, right? And so, another employee, we weren't seeing eye to eye, and it was in the meeting. And he noticed that I was he noticed that I was visibly trying to contain myself, and I did not speak the way that I should have, and I didn't say what I should have said because I was uncomfortable with being angry openly. Right? Does that make sense? And I avoided addressing the elephant in the room because I did not want to be seen as angry. Right? Now, here's the thing: it's never anything wrong with being angry. It's never anything wrong with being in a disagreement. But what is wrong is the way you handle that anger and the way that you attempt to resolve that anger. And I was in a position to have a very healthy conversation that would have benefited everyone in the meeting. However, because I was uncomfortable with the feeling of angry, I avoided that and dealt with it in another way. Now, I'm not saying that it was right or it was wrong, but what I will say is, and what I am causing you to think about is, how comfortable are you with expressing your feelings? Is it something that you are able to navigate appropriately, or is it something that you avoid because you fear you can't handle it, right? And I think that this is something that's truly important for us to understand, that avoidance does not benefit us, and it sabotages our success. It sabotages our ability to grow in the areas that we need to grow in. And I've talked about avoidance in leadership, and entrepreneurship. I've talked about avoidance and having those difficult conversations. And sometimes being in relationships, we avoid connecting and being in relationships because we don't trust the handling or the management of our emotions. And sometimes we have to get to that place in our lives where we trust ourselves enough and we trust God enough that, you know what, if I enter into this relationship and it doesn't go the way I expected, I have the capacity to communicate my needs, and guess what? To set limits and access if necessary, right? And so again, but we have to stop avoiding those things that may be uncomfortable, and we have to be willing to engage in them so that we can grow. The Bible says that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them that are called according to his purpose. And it is important for us to understand that uncomfortability is a necessary, it is a requirement for our growth and development in every aspect of our lives, whether spiritual, whether personal, whether professional. So I want you to think about it. Are you avoiding taking that leap of faith because you're big in this area and you're not quite sure if you're going to be able to grow to the level of success that you did in this vineyard, right? So that's one area. Are you uncomfortable with expressing difficult emotions, or is it something that you just hide and you just deal with it on your own? When are you going to challenge yourself, right, to experience a level of expression that can be worked through and processed through in that moment, right? Now, if you can't handle it or if you can't navigate it appropriately, maybe it don't need to be addressed in that moment. But are you avoiding it, or are you thinking that now is not the time? I want you to think about that, because what we're talking about in this moment is avoidance, and the importance for us to remove avoidance from our daily lives. God bless you, everyone, and have an amazing day.